Hey, Dave. Nice to be here again.
Hey, buddy. How are you?
Pretty good. Tired. I mean, I need to get a coffee after this, but other than that, pretty good. Pretty good. What about you?
Awesome. I'm doing great. Good to see you. And it's a little cold here in Tennessee. I know it's cold in New York, and I'm
It
so
always is
thrilled.
cold here.
I'm so thrilled to travel with you virtually to Puerto Rico today. And even though Puerto Rico is not a state, it's still very much part of the US of A. And Josh always wants to do the interesting and exciting places. So we decided on trying Puerto Rico, right?
Yeah, indeed. And we've got a very interesting and cool person on.
That's right. Kevin Gersh from Gersh Academy is going to be on the show. Gersh Academy is a place that started in New York, but has since spread all over the place: New Hampshire, Seattle, Puerto Rico. So really, really exciting to have him on. And what an interesting and incredible mind, right, Josh?
Yeah, really. And the thing about him is he keeps it really real. So every now and then he may go into something which may be like a serious or trigger. Just we want to let you know that in advance, but it's because this guy's keeping it real. He's not holding anything back, and I think that's something kind of admirable that you keep it real, you keep it raw, and so you really let people know what's up.
Yeah, it is super admirable. And that said, he is someone who thinks differently, like Josh and like myself. And so, as someone who has a couple of years on us, he had a different experience, just like my experience was different than Josh's. Growing up and in school, so that one part kind of sticks out to me. So that being said, let's go to the clip.
Roll it. Thank you so much, Kevin Gersh, for being on here. It's awesome to have you.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Can you tell us about yourself and Gersh Academy?
Sure. My name is Kevin Gersh, and I'm the CEO, but I'm more proud of the CAO title, which is Chief Autism Officer. And I started the company 30 years ago. I've been working with kids on the spectrum for 30 years. I grew up in Huntington, Long Island, and my father owned a day camp. So ever since I could remember, I was working with children, cleaning toilet bowls and picking up garbage and watching my father handle children. And I think I really learned from him that, the way to make a child happy is to customize their environment to meet their strengths and weaknesses. And I learned that from a very young age. My father was an educator. And then I opened a Montessori school in 1985 with my father. And then we had a child on the spectrum going through our program. And back then, in 1991, autism wasn't on anyone's radar. And we had a child with Asperger's. And instead of kicking him out like my teachers wanted to, they wanted to, oh, he's not appropriate, he doesn't belong here, he doesn't follow direction. Instead of, and I remember the story because it's funny that the teacher came to me and she said, I think we should expel this child. I'm like, how old is he? He's 4. I'm like, you can't handle a 4-year-old? I mean, what kind of teacher are you? So I walk into the classroom and I'm looking at all the children, and I'm a trained Montessorian, and I'm like, the classroom looks fine. It's operating perfectly fine. And they say, no, look, he's under the desk reading a book. And I look, and the child's quietly reading a book. And I'm like, is that the right book? Because they have different book reading. And she goes, yeah. I said, oh boy. So instead of getting rid of the child, I fired the teacher. And I replaced the teacher because she didn't get it. She didn't understand that Montessori is not following the child. That child had Asperger's. And instead of asking him to change his behavior to meet the classroom needs, I changed the classroom environment to meet his needs. Let him go to the gym, let him take breaks, let him wear a hat, wear sunglasses, deal with his sensory issues, deal with this ADD. And he did very well. Child had a 127 IQ, and that child was on the spectrum. And that's how I started Gersh Academy, with customizing programming for one child. And it's been my journey ever since.
Wow. What a story. We love Inception stories, but yours is especially special to me. And I have to say that I kind of see a lot of kind of Josh and I and you and your story, in that we kind of fell into this very naturally because of our own experiences in our life. And, we share your passion for making the world work for everybody. So I think that that's so neat and so special. Thank you for sharing all that incredibly insightful and interesting information.
Yeah, I love the energy so far. I love the energy. I'm someone who's really big on like I pick up on energy, and I think that's like a lot of positive energy, and it's all like legitimate. So that's awesome. All right. So with that being said, what about you personally makes you uniquely qualified for this role?
Well, I can tell you, if on my tombstone they write Kevin Gersh, lays here Kevin Gersh changed the world of autism. That's all they need to put. That's my life's mission, is to change the world of autism. And I consider myself a disruptor because um, my own personal journey, my first memory of school was in kindergarten by Mrs. C in West Hills Elementary School in Huntington, being tied to my chair with a jump rope and my mouth taped shut. That's because I have ADD and I was dyslexic. I wouldn't shut up and I wouldn't sit still. So her answer was to tie me to my chair and tape my mouth shut. And I think ever since that experience, and all through my elementary school, my dyslexia, I couldn't read. I was in the lowest reading group. I was made to feel stupid, but I knew I wasn't. I would have to cheat on spelling tests. I mean, I had every gimmick for cheating on spelling tests. And because I didn't want to get a 20 when everyone else is getting hundreds. When I started working with children, it just made sense to me. And then I studied under Dr. Ross Green, who wrote The Explosive Child. I'm familiar with his work. And he was out of Harvard, a psychologist out of Harvard. And I went and I studied under him, and I got level 3 trained in his philosophy. And he was just training psychologists to do talk therapy. And I was the first like school guy who ran a school, and I took what they were doing in talk therapy because I loved his philosophy of follow the child, collaborating with the child and putting their concerns in. And I brought that back to my school environment, and I trained my teachers in collaborative problem solving. And we just, to this day, we look at children's behavior differently. We look, if children are not doing well, what are we doing wrong? Obviously, we're not setting the situation up for success. And that's a unique, perspective that, it's our responsibility to create the environment where the child can succeed. It's not a 12-year-old responsibility who is on the spectrum to change their behavior to meet the classroom needs.
Yeah, as someone who grew up kind of in the shadows of your New York locations, I've always seen it, wondered about it, heard about it, and knew that it was different from a lot of other places. And it's really interesting to hear about the inception and the kind of the mind and minds behind it, and your extremely lofty but critical goal of making sure people are set up for success no matter how they think. It's really inspiring. Very cool.
Yeah. Also, then like your name is known like around the autism community. I remember like when I was a kid, my mom. I forgot what the thing was, but I remember my mom just mentioning the name Gersh. I have no clue in what context or anything, but I just remembered
Maybe you almost went to the school.
that is a possibility. That is possible. I can't like say for absolutely sure. But like so with that being said, like so, what would you say makes Gersh different than other schools?
One thing is that we individualize and we customize the programming around the child, and every child's different. And we look at children, if a child's hitting the ground and melting down and he's nonverbal, he's screaming, this situation is not working for me. It's about reading the child's language and giving them a voice and understanding that we're here to serve them. They're not here to change who they are to meet our expectations. If I said to you, I'll give you $1 million today, you'd be like, great, what do I got to do? Just change your eye color. Go ahead, come on, let's go, change your eye color. That's what we do. So And that's what we do in public education. You know, we expect children to be able to shape and change their behavior to meet the expectations of a classroom without looking at, is it a reasonable request? And when your expectation exceeds their capability, you get a meltdown. It's not rocket scientist. If you ask me to spell and keep hounding me to spell properly and to write a paragraph, you're going to have a 250-pound, 6'2" guy really pissed off. Because guess what? I can't do it. I want to make you happy, but I can't. So when you come from that perspective, I think it looks different. It just feels different. And the children respond differently. You walk in, if you're ever around one of my schools, just knock on the door and walk in. You don't need an appointment, and feel the difference in our buildings. People say when they come to visit, I'm talking about superintendents, I'm talking about guys that have been in hundreds of buildings. They walk in, they're like, I can't put my finger on it, but it feels different. Like everyone's so happy. Everyone's saying good morning to me. I'm like, what is this place? Like, what do you put in the water? And that's what we do, you know, and I try to really create environments that are unique. Like in West Hampstead, we have an equine program. Kids get to go play with horses. In Seattle, we have a zoo. In Puerto Rico, we have a beach. In New Hampshire, I have a swimming pool and I have skiing. And you try to create these environments to give our kids experiences like any other child. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I can go on and on.
I really like that. The experience thing really spoke to me because, I remember like as a kid, I wouldn't get like people wouldn't want to come to like birthday parties and stuff with me. So my mom would like take me, this was like maybe in middle school or something. My mom would take me to like the Intrepid, which is a aircraft carrier, because of special interest with aviation, and I'd bring one friend, so I'd get a birthday experience too. So I understand exactly what I think what you're getting at with the whole create the experiences like other kids, because if you aren't gonna be getting social, like you still should like you have to have stuff, and like so I think that's extremely important and awesome of you to be doing that in your programs.
Yeah, for sure. And that being said, so we've talked about Gersh in general. We've talked about the philosophy. We've talked about New York a little bit. But I just heard you say that you have a beach in Puerto Rico. That's pretty neat. So let's get on to Puerto Rico. As you know, or maybe you don't if you haven't listened, we're on a virtual inclusion tour where we're virtually stopping in a different place every month. And so we could have stopped at Gersh Academy in New Hampshire or in Seattle or in New York. We chose Puerto Rico because, we know that it's a very reputable program in Puerto Rico. So tell us, where does Puerto Rico come in and why did you decide to expand there?
Oh man, that's a great story. So I belong to a group called YPO, Young Presidents Organization. It's basically entrepreneurial leaders and, because it's lonely at the top. And I was at a event in Mexico. A very wealthy gentleman, business owner from Mexico, heard that another YPO owns these schools for autism. So he walks up to me and he says, you Kevin Gersh, and he goes, I have a son with autism. And at the time he had the second largest law firm in all of South America, thousands of employees, unlimited resources, and his child was struggling. And he had him in the best private school, and he says, will you come and open a school in Mexico? And he goes, I'll send my plane for you. I'm like, you have a plane? What? and he sent me a private plane. He flew me to Mexico, and I started doing all this research, and I realized that they have nothing there. And then I went to his home. I met his child. I connected with, and his son, he was like, he couldn't believe how well the child connected with me. And I realized I don't know this culture. So I got to learn the Spanish culture. And then I read an article about the Puerto Rican government returned $325 million back to the US of special ed funding because they didn't know how to spend it. I know how to spend US dollars. And that's why I went to Puerto Rico. I said, if I'm going to learn this culture, I got to do it in my backyard where I know how to get the money. And then I hooked up with Sheila Friedman, who's an amazing educator. And I met this woman. She was running an art education program. And when I met her, I said, she's my partner. And I said, let's take your school and convert it to a school for autism. And she goes, well, I don't know anything about autism. I said, you don't need to, I do. And we just paired up. And now we have the largest program in all the Caribbean. And it was out of the need of just like, trying to solve a problem. And now we have we have 3 locations in Puerto Rico. We have a contract with the Board of Education that we are their resource. So instead of sending them to a public school and failing, the Puerto Rican government sent them to me and we educate them for the Puerto Rican government.
Wow, that's awesome. I just have to say the part about the private jet. I mean, if anyone's been listening to a lot of these, it won't be surprised. I found that's amazing. So
Anything
you're
related to
very lucky.
planes, anything related to planes. Not sure if you know Mr. Gersh, but anything related to planes, Josh is all about.
So, Mr. Gersh, we focus a lot about like work experiences, work opportunities here on Sounds Like Autism. Can you tell us a little bit about the vocational experiences provided at Gersh?
Puerto Rico has very unique vocational programs because the hotel and restaurant industry is very robust, and we have developed a reputation and relationships where they welcome our children into those job opportunities. So we currently have children pre-COVID, and we're getting back into it, working in hotels in the laundry department, changing sheets, cleaning rooms, sweeping floors, picking up all the chairs at the end of the dinner shift so somebody can come in and clean, doing some of the mundane regimented that has to happen, watering the plants. I mean, some of these skills are just, who wants to come in and water the plants every day? Well, our kids do a great job doing it. Genevieve's grocery store, restaurants, hotels.
Awesome.
All right. So, with that being said, what are your corporate partners' views of the work that your participants do for them?
It was 16 Handles. It was a yogurt store on Long Island.
Of course, we know 16 Handles.
As a foodie, I know it very well.
And we developed a relationship when we were sending our kids there, and they were cleaning the yogurt machine and cutting the vegetables. And then one of the children that couldn't do it, he got sick or whatever. And the owner called me and goes, "Hey, Kevin, you think you can send some more kids back to work?" And I'm like, "Sure, of course we can. That's great." I'm like, "Why? What's up?" And he goes, "Well, your kids clean the machine and cut the vegetables better than any of my kids that I hire. They, a quarter inch is a quarter inch, and they spend more time. And when the yogurt machine's clean, it's spotless." And that's when I kind of was like, wow. And then we were working at Mama Soup's, and one of our nonverbal children would spend, and what is the most tedious job in one of those? Taking a fork and a spoon, putting it in a napkin, rolling it up, and then slipping it into this plastic sleeve, right? The owner said our kids did 4 times as many as a normal kid working. He's not on his phone, and it's therapeutic. He just rolls it and puts it in all day long.
That's exactly what we thought, and we're hoping you were gonna say.
Absolutely.
So, great answer.
What I'm noticing about Gersh Academy in general, wherever it is that it's a certain kind of, I guess, workplace culture and a certain culture within these schools that clearly comes from the top and comes from your ideas and you promoting it. How do you kind of, as a leader, of people in the space of vocational training and community inclusion, I'd like to know, how do you kind of maintain that magic? How do you maintain workplace culture and a high standard for your job coaches and support personnel across all of your locations, including Puerto Rico?
Good question.
You find leaders and individuals with the it factor. And it's not a doctorate, it's not a master's, it's the empathy and the energy and the compassion to change a child's life. It's the it factor. Some people have it, some people don't. And that is our criteria for hiring people. You have to have the it factor. And it's no different than JetBlue. JetBlue has this, everyone's so friendly on JetBlue. And I once asked, one of the principals at JetBlue, I said, how do you get your employees to be so friendly? And he looked at me and he goes, we hire friendly people. I'm like, no, duh. We hire people that have the it factor. And that's how we do it. And first and foremost, you have to have the energy and the compassion and the willingness to change a child's life. After that, we can teach anything.
Right. I think that's really awesome, the it factor, what you were talking about, because it's more about personality and who the person is, instead of like the corporate thing where it's like, oh, well, your experience says this, so maybe you are not the right fit. Oh, well, with this, I think it's more real. And so I think especially working with folks with differences, I think that is really the way to go. Really, I like that a lot. I just felt like I had to say that.
I agree. And I think as someone who kind of promotes their own brand of workplace culture and expectations, I think it's just so important to only be bringing on people that are motivated by the mission in particular, and not that it's just another 9 to 5 job. I think that is way more important than experience. And I love that you could say you could teach them anything. It's the it factor. I think that's great. And speaking of teaching people things, if you could teach the world, we like to close with this question. If you could teach the world one thing about your program or about autistic people, what would that be?
How competent they are, how able they are. I use the analogy that, 50 years ago, men coming back from war in wheelchairs couldn't go to the movies, couldn't go to a deli, couldn't go to the doctor because they didn't have handicap accessibility. Well, I believe our society hasn't built handicap ramps for autism. And if I could do one thing, is to build those handicap ramps to teach them how to navigate our society and show how competent and how able our kids on the spectrum and young adults are. How come we're not putting these kids and people on a pedestal and going, okay, how are they going to help change the world? Rather than going, oh, well, they're kind of socially awkward and we're not, they said the wrong thing. So if I could, my goal is and the way to do it is not by talking about it. I'm a man of action. I'm going to give these kids jobs. I'm going to show them what they're capable of. And then I'm going to turn around and go, you see, guys, it can be done. So stop talking and saying it can't be done. Here, if I can do it, so can you. And that's my, method of just saying, talk is cheap.
Mr. Gersh, Kevin, if I may, I think we're friends now. I love everything that you said, and I especially love your comments about wheelchair ramps. In Josh and I's TEDx talk in 2019, we talk about the curb cut effect, which, if you don't know, is the effect that the world has from designing it for people that are different from you. So everyone benefits from curb cuts, and they were a pain to get put into place. And now they're even on my little quiet block in Tennessee, right? But who benefits? People with strollers. Yes, people with wheelchairs, Amazon delivery people, right? We all have something to gain from designing the world from people who are different, right, Josh?
Sounds like the TEDx.
It sounds like the TEDx, which you could
hear it. You could find it on our website, soundslikeautism.com. And another awesome thing, which you can find on our website, I'm going for it, Dave, is our merchandise, which include hats. Like if you're watching YouTube, you see what Dave's wearing, or you see the shirt I'm wearing. These are amazing things. They're produced in a facility which has at least 75% of the workers are on the autism spectrum. I also happen to work there for my day job, so it's all good all around. And I guarantee it will look good on you. If Santa is running late with the list this year, Santa may want to stop by soundslikeautism.com. Trust me, Santa, you won't be sorry.
And yeah, so it sounds like autism.com, spectrumdesigns.org. Thank you so much for Spectrum Designs for making those. And then most importantly, Mr. Gersh, Kevin Gersh from Gersh Academy. Thank you so much for being on the show. It was an honor. Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Love the energy you brought, by the way.
All right. So Josh, what is going on? How's everything?
Not much. What about you?
Nothing. A little close call. I don't know if you saw on the news, but there was a big tornado in Tennessee and Kentucky.
I forgot that was by you.
It came 2 miles from my house, which is really horrifying. Everything else.
Did you see it?
No, but I saw it online. It was only an 8-minute drive from my house, so that's pretty scary.
Oh
man,
that's crazy.
Yep.
Oh man, wow. Okay, well, yeah, that's
all
a
good.
lot.
So I guess we'll see everyone on the other side next year, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, everyone have a happy and safe New Year.
That's right. Thank you. And who knows where we'll end up next? What's close to Puerto Rico? I don't even know.
The ocean.
We got to get back. We got to get back somehow, by boat, by virtual plane, something, back to the continental US. And if you have a suggestion, feel free to hit us up at soundslikeautism.com, at soundslikeautism on all social media, and let us know where we should stop next. And I'll add it to my handy dandy spreadsheet. Thank you so much, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one.